packets for us. And unless the committee members have anything to say, and I do see Councilmember Mink, unless the committee members have anything to say, I'd like to ask the first panel, which is the sheriff's office, if the sheriff and anyone that would like to join him, I shouldn't say like to join him, that would join him, yeah. And I'm going to ask if the panel, once they're seated, if they'll introduce themselves, please, and if they have any opening comments, then we're going to turn to Mr. Einbinder.
Well, again, good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to present this afternoon. So I'm joined today with Mona Cabrera, our budget person, Director Tom Mannion, Family Justice Center, Assistant Sheriff Keena Jones, and of course we know Derek. Thank you, Derek, for being
just
here.
One name. Just
one name. That's right.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
Again, if I may, I would definitely like to express my appreciation to Logan and all of his work in helping us, as well as Derek, move through this budget process again to present before you. As you know, the Sheriff's Office is the oldest law enforcement entity in Montgomery County, having been established in 1777. Of course, today, as the law enforcement arm of the court system, the Sheriff's Office fills a unique role in Montgomery County, whether it is the transportation of incarcerated persons to court hearings or other appointments, providing safety and security to our circuit court, support to survivors of domestic violence at our Family Justice Center, attempting to apprehend dangerous fugitives, or conducting court-order evictions. The members of the Sheriff's Office perform their job professionally every day. And I'm especially thankful to our non-sworn professional staff who have continued to provide support during our ongoing staffing challenge. So thank you again.
Thank you. And as I turn to Liv, Councilmember Mink, and I'm looking at you. I don't know whether you can see me or not. But when you want to speak, I don't always look up and see your hand raised. Either yell out or text me or something, please. Okay. And I had a feeling you weren't going to be shy. And with that, Logan, please.
Good afternoon. The county executive recommends an increase of $2,770,373, or just over 9%, from the FY25 approved operating budget for the Sheriff's Office. This increase includes $833,000 worth of items which council staff has identified as being programmatic and or staffing enhancements. We'll go through those in some greater detail later in the packet. Moving on to department background at the bottom of page 2 of your packet, I'll just remind the committee the most recent discussion at committee involving the Sheriff's Office was the briefing from regarding the recommendations of the state task force to ensure the safety of judicial facilities, which took place in March of 2025, so last month. Sheriff, we participated in the discussion alongside members of the Circuit Court Judiciary and building security staff from the District Court. And as far as pertains to the Sheriff's Office in particular, there was a discussion at that time of some ongoing staffing challenges faced by the Sheriff's Office. The packet at the top of page 3 identifies some proactive steps the Sheriff's Office has taken to address some of the challenges in recruiting sworn staff. One of those is seeking to reclassify certain vacant sworn positions as non-sworn roles, which would facilitate filling those roles potentially more easily and lead to financial savings relative to employing sworn staff in those positions. That is an effort that is ongoing. Also in FY25, the Sheriff's Office secured a $31,000 grant from the state for police recruitment and retention. And the Sheriff's Office continues to recruit new sworn staff and has recruits currently going through training now. The final component of the overview just is regarding overtime. Last year, council staff prepared a table to show the overtime over the past several fiscal years, and for continuity, we've included that and updated that in the packet for FY25 projected. The council did approve an increase in the overtime budget for the Sheriff's Office, and you see that reflected in the last row of Table 2 on page 3 of your packet. Overtime expenditures have continued to increase, so you can see in the third column the additional unbudgeted cost for overtime has remained roughly consistent from FY24 to FY25, even after taking into account that approved increase in overtime. Regarding the operating budget equity tool analysis and the analysis done by the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, since the Sheriff's Office is distinct from the executive branch, the office is not required to submit an OBET to ORESJ. However, I'm sure they would be happy to speak more to the efforts that they are taking with regards to racial equity and social justice. So I'm happy to go into the specific items that council staff has flagged as new enhanced, programmatic or staffing enhancements. But before I do, I'll pause for any questions.
Sheriff, did you want to speak to the racial justice? Racial equity,
Absolutely, Mr. Councilmember. So, as noted, we did not formally submit. However, I will again continue to affirm that while I am the sheriff, I am committed to ensuring that we take into account diversity, equity, and inclusion. I recognize there are certain areas of our government where there's a pullback, but I can tell you, and I think you're aware, that I'm committed to making sure we have the best people in the best places, as well as mentoring and fostering mentorship and promotional opportunities for our wide range of candidates.
And I appreciate that. And I think we should be clear that it's not just it's not in government. It's not Montgomery County government that there's been pullback.
That's correct.
It's in
correct.
Other governments.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Thank you. Please.
Moving on to page 4 of the packet, the table at the top of page 4 summarizes all of the county executive's recommended budget changes. The costs in the right hand altogether sum to that $2.7 million recommended increase from the executive. The top 3 rows of this table are the 3 that council staff has identified as potentially construing programmatic or staffing enhancements. So to take those one at a time, the first is $336,000 for the security guard contract escalator. This item comprises a couple of different components. One is an inflationary increase for existing contract security personnel. The contract security personnel provide security at the Circuit Court building, at the Family Justice Center, and at the Child Support Office. Going back to FY24, the Sheriff's Office executed a new contract to change vendors, which permitted for an increase in contract staffing from roughly 940 work hours prior to the execution of that new contract to about 1,000 hours per week in FY25. And that increase in work hour funding was partially funded from other budget funds. So at this time, the executive has recommended an increase to the budget to match the enhanced number of work hours, the additional number of work hours that have been provided over the past couple of years and are projected to be provided going forward. Since the executive's budget transmittal, the Sheriff's Office has determined that an increase of $320,000 would be sufficient to provide safety to all visitors and employees at each of these locations that I've mentioned. Thus, council staff recommends approval of this item at the $320,000 figure, which would entail a reduction of $16,398 from the executive's recommended budget.
Sounds good to me. I don't know. Are we good? Yes. Okay. Sheriff, did you want to comment on that?
No additional comments other than we may touch on other areas where we're looking at future recommendations, but currently this is where we.
And I'm going to touch on something later on too, but I'm fine with it. I think we're fine.
Yeah, a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick question. Just wanted to give you an opportunity. I wanted to understand the analysis that you did to reduce the 336 increase down to 320. Just how you determined those numbers. For the security guard contract escalator.
Well, without getting into specifics, it's good to see you, council member, first off. Without getting into specifics, looking at managing our mandated frontline screening stations, when we looked at what would be adequate to maintain. I don't want to get into specifics about how many guards are deployed. That was the number we were able to look at. Also trying to be fiscally responsible, completely recognizing our current budget challenges.
Appreciate that.
Okay, please.
Moving on to item number 1.2 at the bottom of page 4 of the packet. The The executive recommended an increase of $275,000 as a one-time installation of mobile data computers and radios in new vehicles for the sheriff's office. This provides for the installation of those items. It is a programmatic enhancement in the sense of these vehicles not being able to be used as public safety vehicles without the increase, but is necessary in order for the vehicles to function as public safety vehicles. So council staff recommends approval of this item.
And I'm fine with that.
Yep.
Okay.
And then the third item at the top of page 5 of the packet is a contract escalator for taser and body-worn camera contract. This increase provides for an upgrade of taser from an older model to a newer model, as well as the expansion of total number of tasers in use in the department to 100 tasers across the department. The new taser model offers substantial improvements in terms of effective range and number of cartridges, and this new model is also the one that is in use at the county's Public Safety Training Academy, so upgrading to the new model would allow deputy trainees to use in service the same model that they're going to be training with. So council staff recommends approval of this item as well.
And I'm fine with that, but let me ask, right now, Sheriff, you have about 120 people with lasers, with tasers?
100.
About 100?
Right.
And how many, for everyone to have one then, let me ask it this way. For everyone to have one, how many more would you need?
So we're currently allotted 155 sworn positions, so 55 additional tasers. We have been able to provide taser training and tasers to every deputy who has sought that training. As you can understand, based on, we've seen significant attrition, normal attrition over the last few years, based on hiring cycles and some other issues. So we've been able to continue to provide taser hardware to all of our deputies as they receive taser training. But as we get to that point where we will need to grow, we would have to have 55 additional units.
Well, and I guess maybe we don't have to do it for this budget this moment, but I do believe that we should have the conversation, whatever, 3 months, 6 months down the road, to make certain that everyone could have, that once needs a taser could have it, and especially in light of the conversation we had for courthouse security, et cetera, I think it's something we need to continue to have that discussion.
Councilmember Katz, I really appreciate that, and I look forward to having that. I will tell you that having other force options and specifically de-escalating situations with our teams and our domestic violence unit as well as within the courthouse, again, huge priorities of mine.
Okay. You good? Mm-hmm. Go ahead, please.
I had mentioned the top 3 items from the table were detailed in the packet. The fourth one is mentioned just briefly here in the packet. That's $69,000 to provide for the replacement of ballistic vests that have reached the end of their useful life, and so staff recommends approval.
Okay.
The decision points that are laid out at the bottom of page 5 of your packet are the decisions that the committee has already made, notwithstanding a small inflationary adjustment for nonprofit service providers, which will be reviewed by the full council to ensure consistency. So with that, that's all the items in this packet, unless the committee has any other questions or concerns.
I don't. I just want to very publicly thank you for everything you and your team does. I said this morning several times that people expect government to be done by magic. You know, it just happens. It doesn't. And you do such a good job, you and your team do such a good job that people don't even, and sometimes they just take it for granted. And that's not fair, but it's true.
Well, again, thank you for your comments, Councilmember Katz. I want to thank, again, the full Public Safety Committee for the time. And to your point, many of our residents don't know, for a variety of reasons, what the sheriff's office does, and
as long as the sheriff does,
quite frankly, if we don't make the news, we're probably doing our job. And again, I am very fortunate and privileged to serve as the sheriff, and as you mentioned, could not do it without our wonderful staff. So thank you.
Are we good? Is it a 3-0? Yes. Go ahead.
It's a 3-0, but if I could make a quick
What'd you
comment.
say? I couldn't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. 3-0 is fine by me. But I just wanted to note that, I mean, I know we're supposed to be looking for places to cut, but this really is like this is a same services budget. It just is. I'm not seeing really anything here that's outside the scope of that. And noting that I really appreciate the partnership between the county and the sheriff's office in ensuring that they get the job that they need to do done, the parts of it that are unpleasant as well, but also being strategic and communicative and trying to, minimize how many folks who need to leave their units, for example, have to be left accompanied by the sheriffs, and how many are able to get out with the assistance of HHS and still within the same time frame. That's really remarkable, and that's a win-win-win for everybody. So I just wanted to express my appreciation there.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Mink. And again, I want to make sure that I make it clear that I am committed to continuing collaboration. There may be times where, based on perspectives, we disagree. Our job, of course, is to make sure we serve court orders professionally, but anything we can do to prevent adding to the unhoused population, I'm committed to doing. So thank you.
I appreciate that. We have seen that on the ground. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So it's 3-0. Thank you. Next up is Circuit Court, please. If Judge Bonifant is here. And Derek, are you running for local office now? Is that?
No.
Yeah. Good answer. And Ms. Farag is going to lead us through, but if the panel could please introduce themselves.
Certainly. Good afternoon, Councilmember Katz, Councilmember Lutke, Councilmember Mink. I'm James Bonifant. I'm the administrative judge at the Circuit Court for Montgomery County. I'm here with Tim Sheridan, who's the court administrator, and I'm here on behalf of the 22 Circuit Court judges and approximately 130 county employees who work at the courthouse. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all of you do. And we're going to ask Ms. Farag to lead us through, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. The county executive has recommended about a $21 million budget for FY26 for the Circuit Court, and this is an increase of about $1.6 million, or 6% from the FY25 approved operating budget. The recommended increase includes about $134,000 in programmatic and staffing enhancements, and we will go through those in a minute. It also includes about $1.14 million increase for compensation adjustments and required operating expenses. Those items reflect a continuation of the current staffing and service levels. There is an operating budget equity tool analysis that has been provided for the Circuit Court, and I want to talk about that in a little bit more detail. One of the things that they've highlighted is grant-funded access to Justice Coordinator position to advance racial equity. I have not been able to identify any potential reductions for committee consideration in this budget. Most of this is a same services budget. The program enhancement is a grant-funded position. So I'm going to walk you through. I'm going to start with the operating budget equity tool. So we've been told that the judicial branch is not subject to the OBET analyses. However, Circuit Court did submit something to the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, and the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice actually gave us an OBET analysis for this. And I just wanted to recommend to the committee, to the extent possible, if judicial branch agencies submit information for analysis and ORESJ actually does the analyses, because while we might think of it as one criminal justice system, it is in fact many different criminal justice systems, and each have different parts to play, different roles, and they can have different impacts. And very often we see as somebody moves through the different pieces, there are compounding effects. So for you, it's better to see what is being done at each part in the system. So to start with the Circuit Court analysis, ORESJ has indicated they've issued an analysis to highlight how the proposed budget and resource allocations help support the goal of eliminating or reducing racial inequities and social injustices in the county. They use the GARE framework, which is to normalize, organize, and operationalize to analyze each department. And they've issued a modified SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis, there is not a numerical rating or score like there has been in prior years. It makes it a little more difficult to try to compare to prior year performance, but I'm going to go through some of the strengths and opportunities that have been noted. The Circuit Court, as I mentioned before, has recently created a grant-funded Access to Justice Coordinator position, and that position will be responsible for identifying, addressing, and implementing policies and practices that advance racial equity. They're going to establish an advisory board focused on supporting DEI initiatives across the Circuit Court. They're also doing training on positive employee-patron interactions with DEI and belonging lens. And they're creating mock scenarios based on lived experience and outside research to train personnel on best practices that are inclusive and anti-discriminatory for engaging with members of the public. Some of the opportunities that have been identified is that they could strengthen their normalizing efforts by ensuring that the Circuit Court staff and leadership also participate with the Access to Justice Coordinator, ensuring they're all involved in the court's efforts to advance racial equity, and also creation of a core team, the development of an RESJ vision and mission statement, and the use of racial equity tools. In terms of the budget discussion items on Table 2, there's a list, page 4 for you, and the first one I'm going to discuss is on page 5. That is adding the Maryland Department of Transportation grant to support problem-solving court for $72,000. The Circuit Court has advised they received a new grant award from the Maryland Department of Transportation for fiscal year 25 to support the problem-solving courts, which includes DUI court, drug court, and their mental health court. The total funds awarded are $72,000, and that will cover contractual services, indirect costs, and training. It'll be used for drug testing and monitoring for those problem-solving courts, hiring a part-time Spanish-speaking contractual case manager, and ETG, please don't ask me to pronounce that, ethyl glucuronide testing for DUI court for alcohol testing. It'll also enable 3 court members to attend the RISE conference to learn best practices standards for problem-solving courts. The second increase is changing a position status from part-time to full-time, which supports senior judges coordinator for $62,000. These positions provide administrative and courtroom assistance to 18 senior judges. They help with preparing judges' dockets, tracking and reviewing cases and correspondence, and communicating with attorneys to determine the status of court cases. The position also ensures the safety of senior judges while walking from courtrooms to the senior judge suites. The next item is shifting state position supplement non-departmental account, or NDA, which is $60,000. The court advises that the state's position supplement NDA allocates funding for about $61,000 for county supplements to state salaries and fringe benefits for administrative assistance provided to the resident judges in the Maryland appellate courts. The appellate courts no longer employ secretarial or administrative staff, and as a result, the court has proposed using this ongoing funding from the NDA to cover judicial assistant salaries who are county-funded assistants, and subsequently close the state position supplement NDA. The next item is increasing costs for mediation under the Alternative Dispute Resolution Grant for $10,000. That funding is necessary for training the court's in-house mediator to improve mediation skills and tackle obstacles that may hinder successful outcomes. It's also providing some training for the ADR administrative aide, ensuring that they both possess the essential skills and knowledge necessary for this position. The funding also covers some travel-related expenses. And item 1.5 for your consideration is a lot of different shifts between general and grant funds, which is aligning different positions with appropriate grant funds. And the net total after you go through all those changes is 0. And it just makes the positions follow the money, basically. In terms of compensation changes for $1.1 million, that reflects the items that I've listed on pages 6 and 7. Again, that's for ongoing personnel costs. And on page 7, finally, a summary of committee decision points. The table below with the one enhancement, which is grant funded for $72,000, is adding support to the problem-solving courts. This is a new item. However, it is grant funded. I am recommending approval of that as submitted, and I'm recommending approval of all the other items as submitted by the executive.
Thank you. The only thing that I just wanted to mention, and I'm fine with everything that's been suggested here, is the concern about the safety of the judicial facility. And I'm sitting next to someone who's been on the task force along, and so I know that we're going to have experts. There again, for this budget, I think we're okay for the moment. and just like with the discussion with the sheriff, but I do believe we need to bring this back. We need to figure out, not that I'm somebody that thinks supplemental budgets are the way to go, but right now I think that might be the way that once we know more about what we need and how we need to do it, to bring this back in 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you think would be appropriate.
Councilmember Katz, thank you for saying that. I think when we met about a month ago, I thanked the committee at that time because I've been very pleased with the support that the council has given to the court because of the events of over a year ago. It's been an increased focus on providing security at the courthouse for the judges as well, but for everybody who works at the courthouse, and that's extremely important. I was listening to Sheriff Wee's comments about what he does. They do an excellent job. They really do. And I feel comfortable. I know people in the courthouse feel comfortable. Just last week we had a training for an active shooter. There's an emphasis on this right now, and I think Sheriff Wee, if he's still here, I can't tell behind me, but we're in communication with them every single day. They have challenges with the number of deputies they have, so we have to stay in contact. I get a message from them every single day as to what coverage they're going to be able to provide at the courthouse, so that helps. So again, thank you very much. With regard, I just want to make one comment.
Sure.
Ms. Rock stated, if you listen to what she said, it shows you the emphasis that the judiciary is now making with regard to conflict resolution, ADR, mediation. It's not the same court 25 years ago where you just come in, call your case, and the judge says yay or nay. There are a lot of services provided by the court now, and that's the emphasis from the judiciary in Annapolis. And many of these items you see on our budget are addressing that. We get 25,000 new filings a year. And Mr. McCarthy is behind me. He will be happy to hear this. In the last 6 or 7 months, the number of open pending criminal matters has decreased by 10%, from well over 1,000 to, at the end of March, it was 910. That's significant. I keep an eye on that, and I keep an eye on the custody cases. And we are just about back to the pre-pandemic numbers for custody cases.
Good.
Criminal cases were still a couple hundred more than we had before. But that's just an example of the work that the people are doing at the courthouse. I'm very proud of them, from the 22 judges. And we've done this without having the full complement of 24 judges. We're at 22 right now, waiting for those appointments, and we expect those in the next couple of months. So I anticipate that the numbers will continue to improve.
Good. Did you want to?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you, Your Honor. And I probably spend more time at the courthouse than any other council members, but old habits die hard. I appreciate, and there was just a transition of appointment secretaries, so now the new appointment secretary is in place, so it's a good time to nudge your request for your filling those vacancies. While I know that the security situation is one that we have to be attuned to and may evolve, and we need to be in constant communication about that, and your needs and what you see the needs of not just your office, but of course the sheriff's office too, in making sure that things are stable over there. And I know you're not going to be shy about letting us know what you may need in that regard, so I appreciate that. With respect to the ADR and mediation, and the importance of those services, because I know you've expressed sort of the level of things that get filed in the circuit court. And mind you, our circuit court is here in Montgomery County is as big as, handles the volume of work of a whole state like Delaware, right? It's all in one circuit court here. What percentage of non-family law civil cases end up going to trial these days?
Far less than 5%.
Right.
Very few. And I handle all the civil pretrials when we get the trial date, and I start asking questions as to the status of the case. Mm-hmm. And the first question is, what's the status of settling this case? Sending them to ADR through the court program, or many times they'll tell us we've agreed to go to private mediation, and it's just it's a focus of mine. And whenever I go and speak, which I do often publicly, there's a groan in the crowd because they know I'm going to start talking about backlogs.
Yeah.
I can't wait till the next time I'm asked to speak somewhere because I'll have good news.
Yes.
This is great news that we have right now.
Well, I hope at the CJCC meeting at the end of May, you'll have even better news. So, yeah, thank you for that. And thank you for the attention to making sure you were doing the best you could with this budget. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilmember Mink, are we good? Or we're 3-0?
Okay.
Thank you very much. I did want to point out, Your Honor, you said that I should, if we listen to Ms. Frog, we always listen to Ms. Frog. I want to put that on the record, please. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Next is State's Attorney's Office, and he is coming forward. Good afternoon. Would you like to please introduce yourselves, please?
I came with a very large group here
I
today.
can see that.
I brought the woman I work for, Lisa Russo, who handles is my office manager and makes sure that everything runs smoothly in my office every single day. My name is John McCarthy. I'm the State's Attorney for Montgomery County.
Is that your opening, or do you have any other?
Well,
please.
okay, mainly I wanted to thank Derek, who is my budget analyst, and Susan. I've read what Susan has written, and I think people have commented about how fabulous she is, and I think she's captured pretty much everything in the report. And I don't want to delay what's going on here. I'm also very thankful to Dr. Stoddard, who's very supportive of things that have ongoing within my office. I always have a tremendous ear from the county executive's office with Dr. Stoddard, and this committee has always been very supportive of the work we do, very important work we do in the State's Attorney's Office, and I'm thankful for that. But I thought I would wait before I made any additional comment until you heard from Derek and Ms. Farag.
Thank you. Ms. Farag, please.
Sure. For FY26, the executive has recommended about $27.4 million for the State's Attorney's Office. That's an increase of $2.3 million, or 9% from last year's approved operating budget. The recommended increases include about $278,000 in programmatic and staffing enhancements, and we'll go through those in a minute. It also recommends about $2 million increase for compensation adjustments and required operating expenses. Those items again reflect continuation of current staffing and service levels. I have not identified any potential reductions for the committee consideration in this budget. Again, the same type of narrative I wanted to highlight again for operating budget equity tools. Again, judicial branch was not required to submit, but the State's Attorney's Office did submit their analysis to the Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice. It was not in turn, however, published as part of that report. So the State's Attorney has shared with me what they've submitted in terms of strengths and opportunities, which I've outlined for you on pages 2 and 3, and I just wanted to highlight a few of them. They continue to work in partnership with the Prosecutorial Performance Indicators Group, and they also have a local research partner with the University of Maryland, and they are looking at performance dashboards to maximize transparency, efficiency, community safety and well-being, justice and fairness, and using data-driven decision-making. They've also assigned a long-term employee to be their diversity equity officer for the office, developing and implementing DEI initiatives, including internal training and coordination with community agencies. The State's Attorney's Office also routinely testifies down in Annapolis about important legislation that increases equity for all community members of Maryland by changing or adding laws to improve the justice system. And they also have a member of a community outreach unit that attends various community review board meetings, including the local NAACP meeting, the police department's African American Liaison Committee, the police department's Hispanic Liaison Committee, the Latino Public Safety Work Group, and cluster meetings for several MCPS schools. And through those boards, the office continues to understand the evolving needs within the community so that it can address those needs. And after they submitted this to Office of Racial Equity and Social Justice, a new initiative came up, and the State's Attorney is also working with Mount Calvary Baptist Church to assist with an expungement clinic on May 17th. Expungements may help reduce the long-term consequences of criminal records, and some of those long-term consequences impact gaining employment and housing. So the expungement clinic can help assist impacted community members by removing those barriers. In terms of the budget discussion items, they begin on page 4. The first one is an enhancement under the Victims of Crime Act grant for victim witness coordinators. They're adding 2 of those and 1 office service coordinator for about $278,000. The state's attorney's office currently has 8 victim witness coordinators, with 4 in circuit court, 3 in special victims, and 1 in the juvenile court. And if this is approved, the new positions will be assigned to the juvenile and district court. The unit also has 1 supervisor and 1 administrative aide. The second increase, number 1.2, is the annualization of attorney retention plan for $585,000. Last October, the state's attorney's office implemented a retention plan to address much higher than average turnover, particularly among more senior attorneys. And their office advises that since this plan has been put into place, attorney resignations have significantly declined and are now within their office's normal range. The annualization of that cost is $585,000 required to add the retention plan to the FY26 budget. And on page 5 at table 3, outlines the different types of bonuses or salary increases that employees get depending on their years for service and their position. The next item is increasing costs for annual case management system maintenance contract. It's a $39,000 increase. The total annual maintenance fee is $396,000. The next item is a case management system interface fee to access case files, and that's $6,000. Again, for potential reductions for committee consideration, I did not find anything in the current state's attorney's operating systems. Outside of the grant-funded increase that we're talking about for new victim and witness coordinators, the proposed budget is basically a same services budget. So the summary for committee decision points is on pages 5 and 6 for your consideration. It's the 1 enhancement, that's a Victims of Crime Act grant, again, for the 3 positions for $278,000. Since it is grant-funded, I am recommending approval as submitted, and I'm recommending approval of all the remaining items as submitted by the executive.
Thank you very much. I too am comfortable with this. I want to there again very publicly thank you for what you do. But as an example, for the Mount Calvary, the expungement event that you're going to have, you work so closely with the community on a variety of issues, and that really is a big help for all of us. That you're not there just for the prosecution side. I mean, the whole idea for students to they used to call it truancy court. I don't know what you call it now, but all of those issues really do make all of those events really do make a difference, and you could change a young person's life, especially because of it. So I want to publicly thank you for that. Do you have anything to add?
Oh, just thank you as well. I really appreciate those programs, and I really appreciate the attention to detail that your entire team has with respect to the work that they do, not just inside the courtrooms, but in the community, and making sure to help educate folks about the law too. So, thank you.
I don't know if Councilman Mink is going to say something. I would hold off.
Councilmember Mink, did you have anything to?
I'll just note that I appreciate the assignment of an employee to be a diversity equity officer for the office to assist with that. I think that's important. So
we actually have, and if I could add to that, we've actually established an entire committee within our office. In our office, besides the person who's assigned as the equity officer, who is there, we also have an African-American young woman. We have a young man who has physical challenges, who is blind, who works on it with that, and we have a Hispanic gentleman. So we have a committee of people that work on this regularly, and they've actually, in addition to some of the things I mentioned, we've had a couple of different public forums. We did one during American History Week where Tina Clark and Ike Leggett participated before hundreds of people in a discussion group about the development of racial relationships in Montgomery County, and they offered their unique experiences here in the community. It was just terrific. And I also said, besides what we're doing with Reverend Moultrie, and because we get to know when you get out into the community, you get to know people, and they come to you and they say, look, I'd like to do this, and we do this with the Mount Calvary Church. Quite candidly, I want to say, it's not the first time we've ever participated in an expungement
Right.
clinic. This is a continuing thing, and I found out that the Bourne Association of African American Lawyers in both Montgomery and Prince George County is doing a clinic. We've reached out to them to say, look, whatever we can do to facilitate, make sure your expungement clinic is successful, we'd like to be a partner with you as well. And the final thing is, and you used the word education. I really do think that more than the traditional locking people up and getting along, I think public education on how to avoid becoming a victim of a crime, whether it's gold bars or kids who are taking pills in the community that don't realize they're faced with fentanyl. I see my role as educator. If I can prevent someone from becoming a victim of a crime in the first place, if I had 0 crimes to prosecute, I'd be doing a terrific job. So we're trying to work towards 0, and I'm very proud of the men and women that work for me. And it is all about education and making this community safer, I think.
Thank you very much. Are we 3-0? I'm looking at you, Councilmember Mink. We're 3-0? Yes, okay. We're 3-0. Thank you very much. Next is Fire and Rescue Service. And if anybody from that panel could please join us. And Chief, why don't you lead us off and let everyone introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon, Councilman Katz. How are you today? Councilman Lukey, Councilwoman Mink. Just real quickly, I'm Corey Smedley, the Fire Chief from Montgomery County Fire and Rescue. With me, we have Miss Vivian Ikuro. Did I say it correctly? All right. Our budget analyst, and before I go any further with the announcement, introductions, I just want to just publicly say to Ms. Ikuro, thank you. We know that she came in right in the middle of the process, and she picked up this complex department very quickly and needed to figure out what we were doing and how we were doing it to help us craft the budget. So thank you again for that.
Thank you so much.
We have our operations chief, Chief Gary Cooper, our fiscal services chief, Dominic Del Pozo. We have our Montgomery County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association Executive Director, Eric Bernard, and our local 1664 IFF Union President, Jeff Buttle.
And Charles.
I'm sorry, I didn't see Support Services Chief, Division Chief Charles Bailey.
He was trying his best to get down as close as he could to the floor, but we saw him. Yeah.
Thank you, Chief Bailey, for being up here. Just real quickly, it is our goal to make sure that we create a department that provides enhanced service and reduce vulnerabilities while creating resilience to our community. And we strived hard for many years to do that, and I'm so proud of the team that we have assembled to be able to come together to do that. What everybody may not know, in these last 8 months, we've had some significant tragedies in our organization. A line of duty death, a occupational death, as well as a untimely death. And I can't tell you the way I'm proud of this organization for coming together and wrapping themselves around everyone so that we could help each other, so that we know that we're okay, so we can be out there helping our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on the panel have any opening statements? Then we're going to turn to Ms. Farag. Going once, going twice. Ms. Farag, you're up.
Thank you. The county executive has recommended a total budget for the fire department of about $311 million. That's an increase of $18 million or 6.2% from the FY25 approved operating budget. This includes about $1.2 million in programmatic and staffing enhancements, which again we'll go through in a minute. It also includes about $23 million increase for compensation adjustments and required operating expenses. Those items reflect continuation of current staffing and service levels. The operating budget equity tool analysis for the department indicates that the fire department will enable activities across all areas of the GARE framework to advance racial equity and social justice. I have identified one potential reduction for committee consideration that was not included in the executive's recommended budget. That potential reduction would reduce career staffing at the Hyattstown Station 709. Projected savings for that would be about $956,000. And I know I didn't have any recommended reductions for my last two budgets, but just to frame it out for people who might be listening, the council president has issued guidance this year because we're in unique circumstances. And so for budget deliberations, she indicated at the April 8th council work session on the budget overview, the committee should seek to find reductions to recommended budget during the committee, and the reason to have those discussions at the committee is so that they would be transparent and involve the impacted departments who could also discuss how those potential recommended reductions might impact services. So that's why we're bringing it up today, and I'll start walking you through the packet.
And as you do that, let me just say that I know Chief Gross from Hyattstown is in the audience. We're going to call you up as soon as we'll have to have someone move, but we'll call you up when it gets to that point. Please.
Sure. In terms of the operating budget equity tool analysis, which starts on page 3, the ORESJ analysis is an assessment of the strengths and opportunities, and they indicate that the Fire and Rescue Service will enable activities across all areas of the GARE framework to advance racial equity and social justice. That GARE framework normalizes, organizes, and operationalizes racial equity work within the departments. In terms of their strengths, the funding supports this year their diversity and equity and inclusion program. They have a core team, which is facilitated by their DEI officer, and that's anticipated to include committees with members from across the department who are permitted to use staff time to support their participation. In addition to the core team, the OBET response indicates that MCFRS may also consider assigning fire station-specific DEI liaisons to broaden the reach of the DEI program. Also developing synchronous and asynchronous DEI professional development, developing a website presence to house DEI resources, engaging with other county government partners engaged in DEI initiatives, and working with community organizations to establish connections with Black, Indigenous, people of color, low-income, and other marginalized groups. The FY26 funding also continues the work of the Community Risk Reduction team members and the Community Action Coordinator. In terms of opportunities, they indicate that the DEI officer anticipates tracking participation of the department's DEI initiatives, in addition to tracking broad-based participation in these initiatives. Racial Equity and Social Justice Office also indicates it may be valuable to establish a core team recruitment strategy and membership tracking to ensure diversity in demographic characteristics, staff positions, and length of service. In terms of the budget discussion items, they're outlined for you starting on page 5. The first addition is adding one basic life support transport unit. This totals about $1 million, and it actually involves two of the enhancements listed in your list. The first one increases 10 recruits to support program enhancements for about $500,000, and the second one enhances emergency medical services by adding one BLS unit using ESPP funds for $539,000. ESPP funds are State Emergency Service Transport Supplemental Payment Program funds, which is the result of a state Medicaid plan amendment. These two increases combine to provide 10 new firefighter recruits to provide staffing for a new BLS transport unit, which is to be located at the Bethesda Station 26. The first item is providing the funding for the 10 new recruits through the academy, and the second item provides 6 months of funding for the firefighters at Station 26. The first item is using regular fire tax district funds. The second item uses ESPP funds. The next item is enhancing the community risk reduction for expanded engagement and education. Again, this is using ESPP funds for $100,000. It's increasing the department's community outreach activities, which have grown and expanded in recent years, and it adds additional personnel to support the growth. The department advises the operational funding is needed to continue expanding outreach efforts in addition to covering cost escalations for supplies that are currently used in the section's work. The next item is adding a firefighter 2 position to the community action team, again using ESPP funding for about $92,000. This position, when they created the community action team in FY24, it used 1 lieutenant position designed to expand community engagement through prevention and education services. And this additional firefighter, if approved, would allow the program to continue to expand and reach more community residents. 1.4 addresses funding for local fire and rescue departments for a total of about $2.4 million. The first piece is the increase in EMST distributions, it's emergency medical services transportation fee distributions to the local fire and rescue departments for $2.34 million. MCFRS has 2 primary sources of income generated from medical transports, the EMST funds, transportation fees, which are billed to insurance companies, and the ESPP funds, again received under a state Medicaid plan amendment that increases reimbursement for the transport of Medicaid patients. The executive distributes 15% of both of these to the LFRDs. For FY26, they're assuming $23 million total in EMST funding and $13.7 million total for ESPP funding. So the total distribution from both of those sources to the LFRDs is projected to be $5.5 million. So where the recommended budget increase comes from, the increase is $2.34 million over last year's distribution. MCFRS is advising that this increase is actually tied to ESPP payments instead of EMST, even though it's labeled that way. And that's based on making an additional payment to the LFRDs as a catch-up with FY24 and FY25 ESPP distributions that will occur in FY26. And it's a one-time funding parameter adjustment. Last year, the council adopted resolution language that requires the department to report on ESPP distribution and uses by LFRDs in a manner similar to the EMST funds. Draft language for both of those resolution portions are included for FY26, included on Circle 28 for your review and approval. And then we have the MCV-FRA agreement, which is totaling $93,717. Typically speaking, the county executive sends over a resolution that identifies all the different elements of this agreement. They're currently in a reopener, and we didn't receive a resolution this year. The current agreement as it stands goes through FY26, and these are the cost elements listed on page 7 that outlines the different pieces of that agreement. So the FY26 increases are for association operating funds, nominal fee, and LoSAP for $93,000. $84,000 for most of the elements of the MCFRA agreement. The LoSAP was handled separately for a cost of almost $9,000 because of a change in the law last year. The next item is an increase of the striker cot maintenance agreement for $454,000. The total contractual cost for this striker cot maintenance contract is about $568,000. In years 1 and 2, MCFRS paid about $57,000 each of those 2 years, and the FY26 cost reflects payments for years 3 through 10 of the agreement, which is why it's a large lump sum. The next item is an increase in fleet vendor contract rate adjustments for about $278,000. That reflects cost escalation in the combination of 3 fleet maintenance vendors who have increased labor rates, and it shows the total estimated cost based on annual vendor usage. The next item is for protective personnel equipment, contract pricing escalations for about $100,000. That contract is a price list contract rather than a fixed price contract, and the total contract costs are about $1.3 million. This is based on, the increase is based on price increases for individual items and projected PPE replacements as needed in the upcoming fiscal year. The next item, 1.8, is an increase in the vendor contract for EMST collections for $100,000. This covers the cost of additional transports and is not driven by a change in the vendor. The total contractual costs are estimated to be about $1 million. An increase in the medical director's CPI contract adjustment for about $7,700. That's just based on the CPI index for the Washington metropolitan area, which was 2.9%. The total contract costs for this are $268,000. The next item replaces 2 uniformed staff with 2 civilian educators at the Training Academy High School Cadet Training Program for a net savings of $33,000. This program is currently overseen by 2 uniformed firefighters, but they are working on overtime. This proposed change would add 2 civilian positions as EMS educators grade 25 at about $101,000 per position, but that cost is offset by returning 2 uniformed firefighters to the field, which equates to about $235,000 in overtime savings. An increase to the insurance premium increase, about $178,000. The total insurance premiums paid by the department now are $3.7 million, and this item reflects the increase over last year's approved amount. The next item is providing bottled water for heavy apparatus for an increase of $15,000. This is a collective bargaining agreement provision. Total contract costs about $120,000, and this year it's increasing by $15,000. There's a decrease for risk management adjustment by about $83,000. For FY26, the total risk management expenditures are projected to be about $13 million, which is based on the county's actuarial analysis of risk management funding. So for FY26, they are projecting that costs should decrease slightly by about $83,000. The holiday pay decrease is the number of holidays, and it's related to the item below it. This is a reduction of about $376,000. They had included one holiday in their elimination of one-time items approved for FY25, but they forgot a different holiday. So the election day was included, but inauguration day was not initially included. So this just reflects the reduction in pay for holidays. And then the elimination of one-time items approved in FY25, which is a $5 million decrease. There's a chart on page 9, which is reflecting the FY25 budget items that were one-time expenditures, which have been removed from the recommended FY26 operating budget. The department advises that the one-time costs related to the FTEs, which had been added last year, are actually based on recruit training costs and overtime related to filling those positions with new FTEs in the budget year. Those costs are backed out after year 1, with the FTE position costs being annualized in year 2 and out years. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. The EMS transformation saves $125,000. That removes funding for an additional EMS duty officer position, which was added last year to help provide better health outcomes for more diverse parts of the county. Fire Station 40 staffing, a reduction of $535,000. That item removes funding for 6 FTEs that was added last year to assist with failures to respond at Station 40. The Fire and Explosives Investigation Unit, FEI, restructuring, a reduction of $234,000. That removes funding for restructuring that unit. Total FY25 costs had been $286,000, and it added 3 FTE firefighters as cause and origin investigators. For the cadet training program, a reduction of $234,000. That removes funding for the cadet program in high schools. Last year, $616,000 was added in 1 FTE to expand the program to 2 years, adding firefighting to the curriculum. And for cancer screen annualizations, this is a reduction of $739,000. Last year, it included $1 million for cancer screenings to be conducted at Fire and Rescue Occupational Medical Services, or FROMS. The collective bargaining agreement structure allowed for the reimbursement of cancer screening costs to its members on a cyclical basis with year 1, resulting in the highest anticipated level of funding. They estimated 75% participation in that first year, and the excess funding has been removed and backed out in the out years. The compensation changes again are...
I did want to point out that Fire Station 40 is Sandy Spring.
Yes.
I mean, for someone who's trying to follow this at home.
The Georgia Avenue.
Yeah, whatever. If we could do it not only by number, if we could do it in place.
I think there's a map in the budget.
Could be.
Hold on. Yes, there's a map with station numbers on Circle 12 of your packet.
Okay.
So.
I knew I
Okay.
saw it, but I didn't go remember where.
And then the compensation adjustments under 1.16, the total changes are $18.6 million. That just reflects negotiated compensation increases, which the council will review separately, as well as other annual compensation adjustments. In terms of potential reductions for committee consideration, I had identified the Hyattstown Station for savings of a total of $956,000. This would remove 3 career staff from Hyattstown Fire Station, I believe would have a minimal impact on the overall service delivery of the county. The department advises that to provide 4-person staffing for paramedic engine 709 requires what's listed in the chart on page 10 for you, table 6. That includes 3 FTEs for captain, 3 FTEs for master firefighters, 3 FTEs for firefighters, and then there's 1 firefighter/paramedic position staffed fully on overtime. The recommended reduction here removes the career firefighters, 3 career firefighters and 1 firefighter/paramedic staffed on overtime for a total savings of $956,013. And while cutting services is not ideal, the department has faced a structural overtime deficit for the past 10 years. The department has 1,245 career firefighter positions with no current vacancies. The recommended FY26 overtime budget is $19.6 million, while their FY25 overtime costs are expected to reach $32.4 million. This overtime deficit has been discussed at length for the past several years, but the bottom line basically is countywide staffing is not sufficient to provide the current services. And we have had this discussion multiple times about trying to address a 180 career firefighter deficit. Several positions have been added over the past 7 or 8 years. It has not been sufficient to shore up operations to the point where they don't have this huge overtime deficit. And it's very similar to the police discussion that we have. It's a little bit different. Police can't recruit and retain as well as they need to, and so they are currently looking at workload analyses to figure out where to redeploy their current staff to deliver the best community safety services they can. Fire department is fully staffed on the career side. The volunteers are suffering some challenges for recruiting and retaining. But again, the fire department is conducting a workload analysis again to figure out these are our current resources, these are our current call for service needs. How do you best deploy people to meet the services across the entire county? It's my understanding that Hyattstown runs about 608 runs per year. 57% of them are in Montgomery County. It ends up being less than a call for a day. It's still important. I want to emphasize that a lot, but again, looking at the totality of the needs across the entire county, what makes the best sense? I think that reducing career staffing at Hyattstown would allow the department to redeploy these career firefighters elsewhere where the service may be more needed. And whether or not the committee wants to take this recommendation, I would recommend a follow-up possibly in the fall or the early winter to both understand deployment reassessments, and also are there ways to help support volunteers with recruiting challenges and retention. And based on what experience, if any of these recommendations are taken based on experience, they don't necessarily have to be permanent changes. Things can be switched back as data provides need. But I did want to offer that up for discussion.
Well, let's put a pause on that and invite Chief Gross from Hyattstown to please join us. If I can pester somebody on the panel to please let Chief Gross sit there. Thank you. You're going to need to touch the button in front of you. There you go.
Well, thank you, members of the committee, to allow me to speak. For over a decade, we've fought against budget reductions. This has been a reoccurring phenomenon for our station. Currently, there are 2 efforts that threaten our career staff, both Chief Smedley's redeployment plan and now the council staff's funding cut. As an operational leader, I oppose these cuts. They pose a severe threat to our department and community for several consequences. Longer EMS and fire response times due to units coming from Clarksburg or Frederick County, adding estimated at 6 minutes to a call response. We also have no fire hydrants in our area, which would cause an increase in the ISO rates for property owners in the area. The loss of our rescue engine is crucial for auto extrication and technical emergencies, requiring resources to replace that would have to come from Frederick or Germantown. On the volunteer side, we're going to try to address, make up some of the shortfalls that we have by recruiting neighboring volunteers. We're also looking at recruiting college students to become live-ins at our station, so that's going to take some time to, establish that and organize that. And we're going to continue recruiting from the community as we have done. In any case, all of these changes on our part will take time to do, and the gap may not be filled as quickly as enough to prevent a disruption in service from our department. It's also important to know our emergencies in our community are just as significant as any other emergency, and our community should not be deprived of reasonable services from our county. We would like to participate in solving the staffing and budgetary concerns, but we can only do that if we have a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everything that you do.
Would you like a copy of this? Or?
Yeah, you can. Just give it to Ms. Frog. She'll make copies for us.
I'll distribute to all of them.
Thank you, Chief. I think we'll discuss it at the end of this, but please.
The remaining items for your review are two CIP amendments that the executive sent over on March 14th for capital improvement projects. The first one is fire apparatus replacement. This is a funding switch, which shifts about $7.1 million from current revenue to short-term financing. There is no impact on total project costs or the apparatus replacement schedule. And the Clarksburg Fire Station, again, a March 14th amendment. It reduces total overall project costs from about $31.2 million to $30.7 million, which is a reflection of $500,000 in savings in total project costs. I've outlined the fund balance policy. MCFRS is funded through the Fire Tax District Fund. The council may levy a tax on each $100 of assessed value of taxable property in the Fire Tax District, which is the entire county, to a rate to yield an amount the council finds sufficient to fund MCFRS operations. They try to balance this out every year based on how much they think the projected operations will cost. Summary of the committee decision points are on page 12 and 13 for your review. The first two should be considered together, enhancing EMS by adding one BLS unit and increasing 10 recruits to support the program enhancements. That's for a total of about $1 million. That adds the one BLS unit for Station 26. The second one is enhancing community risk reduction for expanded engagement and education. This is $100,000 ESPP funded. And the third one is the firefighter 2, adding that to the community action team for about $92,000. Again, it's ESPP funded. Since most of these are ESPP funded, at least in part, I am recommending approval as submitted by the executive. I do have the one recommended reduction for savings of about $956,000. That shift assumes career staff are reassigned to other assignments, resulting in a reduction of both overtime and also one minimum staffing seat. And then the two CIP amendments as submitted by the executive, funding switch, and one shows an actual net reduction. I'm recommending approval of those and recommending approval of all other items as submitted by the executive.
Thank you, Ms. Rowe. I'm certainly in favor of the first two that you mentioned. The whole idea for the Hyattstown for $956,000. We deal in budgets. This committee deals in budgets. We don't deal in deployment and where things will actually be. And I know that the chief. There's more than one chief in the room, so I have to be careful on how I say that. I know that Chief Smedley is wrestling with the fact of how we can do more at the same time, and for all the savings that we need, and what we're wrestling with from the council side. I don't believe we should reduce the amount of money that would be going for the $956,000. I believe that should stay in the budget, and I know that we've received a letter from from Mr. Buttle about an additional EMS transport, and we'll get to that in 2 seconds. But I think we should leave the 956 in the budget, even though it's not a savings as such, and then come back and let the chief Smedley and others work with their partners to figure out what's the best way forward. I think we should come back to this in the 3 months or 6 months or whatever that time frame is. But there again, I don't want to give the impression that I believe that it should necessarily be that people stay in Hyattstown or in any other place. I do believe that we should have the people that are there will be needed, and I believe that they would be needed somewhere, regardless of where it is. And then as far as the letter from Mr. Buttle about the EMS transport units, and I think you suggest in there that it would be 10 FTEs at about 1.34 million for the first year and 1.2 million annually, with a vehicle outfitting of 680,000 to be put on the reconciliation list. I have no problem doing that. I think we have to be very upfront and say our reconciliation list sometimes is kicking a can down the road. I mean, let's be, and it's what money we might have at the end of a process. The reality is the money we might have at the end of this process is probably going to be less than what we would like. I mean, that's just, I do believe we should have that on a list somewhere that says this is where we should be, could be, need to be, and there again, visit it again. But at this point, I don't want to give any false hope as to what I'm suggesting, but I do believe we're going to need it, and we all need the volunteers who do a wonderful job for us, the career firefighters who do a wonderful job for us, for command staff who do a wonderful job for us. All of us need to sit at the table, figure out what we have and what we don't have, and it's both, and then get back as far as we're concerned for the budget part. But as far as you all are concerned, is about how you actually serve the public. That's where I am.
Just a quick question. So my understanding was that the money that's marked as a potential reduction with respect to the Hyattstown station is simply that's because of overtime costs. So it's not that we're reducing staff. It's not that you would be reducing overall number of staffing. It's where they are being staffed, and if they are staffing Hyattstown in the way they have been, it will yield that overtime charge that comes in just under $1 million. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So positions are not being, full-time employees are not being reduced. It would be the daily number of seats we have to fill every day, which in turn has some overtime savings attached to that.
Is the entire 956 overtime? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. About half of it is overtime. The other amount will be covered with, if we have 308 seats that we have to fill every day, now we have to fill 306 seats. And then those personnel will be used where there's overtime in other places to reduce.
Right.
That's the methodology based on the reduction.
Right. So how to say this the right way. So there's about 500,000 of it that's directly overtime associated with that specific station, but then you're saying that the availability of the two career folks who presently must be allocated there to staff there could be used to relieve overtime costs that are accrued at other stations where there's
but let me give you the exact number. So that one overtime person is the $500 and something thousand a year.
Right.
The other one is one person on each shift, which is 3 shifts, would be redeployed to curtail overtime elsewhere.
Okay. And knowing that, and we've all been in communication with everyone here, and I certainly appreciate everyone's, positions and the need to get everybody at the same kitchen table to have discussions about what staffing looks like moving forward. And certainly that is a function of you and the other folks up here, and you get to decide that, right? We're not here to make operational decisions about fire department. But it's not clear to me what the time frame is for that, or have you all had a discussion, over the past 2 weeks or so?
If you're talking about the proposed reduction, it would be by assumption that it starts fiscal year. If that's what we're talking about with the reduction, that's the fiscal year, because
Right.
the numbers are for a full year.
Right.
So that would, if the reduction goes forward, my understanding would be July 1, it goes live.
Okay.
Is that accurate, Susan?
So then my question now would be, could we take the line item with respect to the Hyattstown issue, which sort of seems to stand separate from some of the other things we're determining here today, and say we're going to tranche that onto the reconciliation list so that we revisit that as a decision point in the next couple of weeks?
I like your first statement of letting us do the operations based
Right.
on our subject matter expertise. I can tell you there are discussions and there are some differences of opinion from both our International Association of Firefighters as well as our Montgomery County Volunteer Fire Rescue Association, that we have to work through those differences to figure out what are the best solutions for the organization to serve the community. We are asking for more, and that's reflected in the budget.
Right.
And we're going to find creative ways to not have response disparities throughout the organization. And I'll use this word, and I'm being very clear on that. It's not equal, it's equitable.
Right.
We need to move the resources, wherever the resources are, to where the resources are needed, not where they're not needed. And so that's some of the things that we have some differences of opinions about, that we need the time and space to work through that to figure out what's in the best interest of our community.
Okay.
Well, when you're saying, if we put something on the reconciliation list, to my earlier statement, it doesn't mean it's going to come off of it. It means that it's on just the side of a wish list at some point here. Maybe that's being a little too dramatic, but if we did that, and then we're going to have to come back to the entire council, that would be several weeks, I guess, a couple weeks before that happens. Would part of your discussions be in the meantime for that?
Yes. So we are. The plan was derailed, and so we have to adjust how we approach it. So we had to identify the problem, which we know that we don't have enough transport units. 78% of what we do is emergency medical services. So we don't have enough transport units. And we know that how our deployment exists right now, there's some disparity. So when we talk about race and social equity justice, that's one of the things externally that we're going to look at, and we're going to be deliberate and bold. And my team has heard me say that many times. So we have to next really go through what are some of the options. We've done that with our regional partners. We have not done that fully with, we've done some areas, not fully with the internal team. So that's the next phase, where there are some meetings being scheduled to do that. And then we will consider alternative options to figure out what are some other things that we can do to help accomplish those goals of serving our community equitably. Then I will make a final decision on that. So we're talking a few weeks, months, before all those meetings happen, et cetera, so that we can come together on those things. But, I fought hard in the county executive's proposed budget process to keep any of the reductions that we put forward based on the guidance out of the process, so that we can have a very sterile space to go through that collectively internally, so that we can figure out other alternatives. And we still need time to do that.
So are you proposing? Okay.
Yeah, I was proposing putting that item on the reconciliation list for revisiting when we come
Right.
back.
Which I agree to also. Councilmember Mink, do you have a comment on that one?
I will say that I have concerns about not funding this, because it's clear that there is a need, that we know that we have to have thorough coverage in rural areas. We know that overtime is very high and that there's no vacancies, and clearly there needs to be operational shifts and changes, and we don't want to be doing that with this budget session, and I think everybody is agreed on that. This is definitely going to be a bigger conversation. It could be a bigger conversation to start in budget, but it's going to need to be a bigger conversation out of budget as well, and I would assume that will come with shifts that we'll be hearing about from FRS also down the line as that all comes together. And so I think the question is just, I think we want to make sure that we have what's in the budget to cover us from now till that moment, and we don't really have a lot of extra, so we want to make sure it's not more than is needed. So Chief, is there anything that you want to add?
I just want to be clear on what we're talking about on the reconciliation. You have the Hyattstown you're putting on the reconciliation, and you have the letter from the IFF to put on reconciliation. So if I'm clear on that, then I don't have anything else to add to that. We just still need space and time to go through that process. It is happening. Meetings are being scheduled. There will be 3 meetings scheduled to talk through those things. We have to share some more information with our partners. That information will be shared. We will come together, find solutions. I am very confident that we will come to some areas of agreement, and I'm confident that there's going to be some things that we just flat out disagree with. But I know that we will still have the common goal of doing everything we can to support our community.
I appreciate that, and if I have concerns about putting this one on the rec list, I will note. But I know that we're looking for stuff to put there, and that we're waiting to look through budget amendments and all of that to know exactly where we'll stand and where we're going to stand regardless. And so if folks want more information, I understand that, but I have a hard time seeing not funding this one. I will just say it seems like there's certainly need, and I just have concerns about getting involved on the operational side with a really important service. But I certainly understand colleagues' desire for more information.
So there again, I'm in favor of the reconciliation list of the 2 items that Chief Smedley has mentioned, and you the same. And where are you on that one, Councilmember Mink?
That's fine. That's fine. As long as I just want to make sure that we have the fulsome conversation. Then obviously,
yeah, no, we need conversation. That's
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Are you clear?
I'm not clear.
Okay.
So no recommended cut for Hyattstown.
That's correct.
But the additional transport units on the reconciliation list.
Well, the cut for Hyattstown would be on the reconciliation list. We're not saying that it would stay there.
Right. The point was to neither approve nor disapprove that today. I don't know if the
Okay, so you're recommending that it be placed on the reconciliation list,
Yes.
though? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it could go on for a fuller council discussion?
Correct.
Okay.
For both boards.
And that's for the transport units,
Yeah.
too? Okay. All right. Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Anything else? Anything from the committee?
I do have just one clarification.
please.
On page 5, add the recommendation to add the BLS transport unit. That all comes from ESPP
Yes.
funding.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Please.
So I did have a question about Station 40. Since the career staff were added last year to deal with the failure to respond concerns, but now being pulled away. Could you speak to that and what the change in call volume and or need is there?
So I cannot address the change in call volume. I was not prepped for that.
Okay.
However, 100% impact, failure to respond rates are near zero now due to the added staffing. So thank you very much.
Okay, but did I?
So the added staff is not disappearing.
Oh,
My
okay, thank
understanding
you.
is
Still-
Just needed to make
it's
sure that
backing
was
out
the point.
first-year recruiting training costs.
Okay, all
So
good.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Much better. I feel, it's my district. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Ms. Frog? And so the way that we've set this up, I think it's a 3-0. Am I correct? Yes. Okay, it is a 3-0. Thank you all very, very much for everything you do. And the last item on today's agenda is what is it? It is, I have more papers here than I got anything else. Is the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. If they are coming forward. So, Luke, I had to say anything, but you cleared this room. I mean, was it something they thought you were going to say? I mean, I'm just asking.
I'm telling you, I need to start bringing an entourage. It's effective.
If the panel will please introduce themselves.
Sure, absolutely. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Luke Hodgson. I'm the director of the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security. To my left, I have our deputy director, Nicole Markuski. To her left, I have Mr. Derek Harrigan, who is with the Office of Management and Budget. And to my right,
Kristen Cummings, legislative analyst.
Who's going to lead us through this packet.
yes, I just want to start by thanking Kristen and Derek immensely for the help over the last several months. As you know, it's always a tough process, but this year is particularly burdensome for our office due to some of the federal changes that we're seeing. And it is a very complicated, complex budget just by its very nature. And these two have been stalwart supporters of what we provide to the community and making sure we find a way to continue to do so. So I want to thank you both very, very much. With that, I'll turn it over to you.
Please.
Thank you. The county executive recommends an increase of $956,100.
If you could speak up just a hair. There you go.
Absolutely. The county executive recommends an increase of $956,179, or a 20.1% overall increase, to the OEMHS operating budget over the FY25 budget. This total reflects a 35.2 increase in general fund and a 24.9 decrease in the grant fund. And the full operating budget proposal can be found on circles 1 through 6 of the packet. The executive recommends $1,255,447 in programmatic enhancements and shifts from grant funds. To touch on a couple things before we really get into the numbers in the staff report today. The operating budget equity toll analysis summary is on pages 3 and 4 of the staff report. And the department indicated that OEMHS detailed a list of activities that the office plans to undertake through the budget in all 3 areas of the GARE framework. And they did note that at the time that the OBET was written, that the proposed RESJ initiatives were amongst the most extensive to be articulated by a department during this budget season. So as we go into some of the executives' recommended budget changes for this year, I did just want to restate, as has been said by some of the other analysts this afternoon, that the process for going through enhancements is to consider if we would like, the committee would want to put any of them on the reconciliation list for council consideration. Staff did not note any additional deductions to the budget for this year, FY26. I did just also want to take a moment to thank Mr. Hodgson and Ms. Markowski for their help in putting this packet together. So the first proposed change for committee review is the replacement funding for the continuation of Urban Area Security Initiative UASI program supported grants for the purpose of planning, training, and emergency exercise in the amount of $940,893. This request would shift that amount of funds and 2.5 FTEs that are have been funded through UASI program funding into the county general fund. Apologies. So the funds are currently being used to support personnel as well as emergency management, law enforcement, fire, and EMS programs. It provides resources for community preparedness, specialized training, response technology, public safety enhancements, and disaster response. There is a table on page 6 of the staff report that breaks out the costs of replacing the grant funding with the county general fund. And council staff that would just note that it has been an ongoing department initiative over the past several fiscal years to gradually transfer positions funded through UASI grants to the county general fund for security purposes. Noting that this is a highly unusual grant year in light of federal events, this would bring contractors that are currently working with the department into full-time positions. The department did share that this would increase the flexibility that these contractors as full-time staff members would be able to, the work they would be able to do. And a full description of how the flexibility would increase can be found on Circle 11 of the packet. OEMHS reports that the current grant funding for these activities is scheduled to end in September of 2025, with the federal support uncertain at this time. The committee will need to determine whether it supports moving these services to the general fund on a permanent basis. Chair Katz, would you like me to keep going or pause for a discussion?
Yeah, I think, please.
Keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. The second item is the enhanced funding for additional nonprofit security grant program for organizations and facilities at high risk of hate crimes in the amount of $300,000. This enhancement would actually bring the amount in the nonprofit security grant program up to the total amount of $1.2 million that was made available last year. In FY25, $900,000 was allocated into OEMHS's base budget, and an additional $300,000 was allocated as a one-time expenditure. Should the enhancement not be provided, fewer grant applicants would be able to receive grant funding for the coming fiscal year. We did include information on page 7, as well as on circles 12 through 13 about some of the results of the funding from last year. $1.65 million in grant funding were actually requested, had all eligible applicants received the grants. About 63% of grant applicants were houses of worship, and out of all the applicants in FY25, 27 recipients were first-time award winners. Council staff does note that this area is a potential funding option for committee consideration. The committee could choose to place all or some of the total $1.2 million recommended by the executive on the reconciliation list as a potential reduction item. The third item we have is enhanced funding for the Emergency Operations Center EOC maintenance in $50,000. This requested enhancement would be used towards technology and equipment maintenance and updates for the EOC, staff training and exercises to ensure that personnel are familiar with procedures and protocols, facility sustainment of the physical infrastructure, and supporting the maintenance of the operational readiness. Should this enhancement not be granted in the operating budget, OEMHS does report that it may cause challenges in maintaining the EOC operational capacity. Next, we have enhanced funding for Emergency Management Accreditation Program in the amount of $40,000. OEMHS is scheduled for reaccreditation through the Emergency Management Accreditation Program for FY26. This renewal necessitates a periodic cost of $40,000 every 5 years. And this accreditation process will allow the department to maintain accreditation and can strengthen the grant application as it can indirectly affect eligibility. It also can help the department to adopt and sustain a framework for continuous improvement, potentially resulting in identifying gaps in operational readiness and resilience that can be addressed. Next, we have enhanced funding for a web-based system used for planning, response, and recovery from emergencies for $30,000. And this enhancement was requested due to a loss of grant funding. The Web EOC was previously supported through the National Capital Region Urban Area Security Initiative grants, which is at this point no longer provided and must be absorbed by local jurisdictions. This current grant cycle will end halfway through FY26, and the Web EOC is a tool to support emergency management efforts, real-time communication, and provide a centralized platform for tracking and managing critical incident information. Department leadership did share that they are currently in the process of researching some various programs that they think might work to replace the Web EOC, including consulting with TEBS to see if a system may be developed internally to have the operations capacity that is required by Web EOC. And should this be developed internally, it would have minimal or no expense to the department in future years. Our last item is enhanced funding for uniforms and personal protective equipment in the amount of $20,000. And this is a proposed enhancement for uniforms and personal protective equipment. This would include weather-resistant jackets, gloves, helmets, boots, protective eyewear, masks, and gloves. And with that concludes the executive's recommendations.
Again, thank you for doing such a fine job on the packet. I think the one area where we've been, I guess the word lobbied would be the right word, is about the enhanced funding for additional nonprofit security. You're saying that, it could be under consideration that we could have it as a reduction. I certainly am not in favor of reducing it, though there have been, I guess, some lobbying that it would be, it's either 300,000 or 500,000. I don't remember the number.
300,000 enhancement.
Well, that's from this, but a group or groups have suggested that it be higher than that. We've had discussions about how much would be more if we added the 300,000. Would that take care of the requests? And at this point, it sounds like, or at least I believe, it would do that. Are you in agreement or disagreement with that?
So, unfortunately, we've seen the requests for these funds rise over the years, which to me is indicative of
absolutely
the sentiment in the community, not necessarily reality, but I think in fact it is reality, to be honest with you. This past year, we saw $1.65 million in requests from the community, which obviously far exceeded what we were able to process. As mentioned in the packet, we did allocate funds to each and every organization that was eligible for them, but it wasn't to the extent that everyone had requested. I say that 1.65 number to tell you that following the October 7th, 2023 attacks, our number climbed to over $2.5 million. So it very much is influenced by what is going on in the geopolitical spectrum, as I think makes perfect sense. So we did see an anomaly that year where we saw a stark contrast between previous years and that year. But in general, we've been at about 1.5 to 1.6 leading up to that. And I think you see that, I think that is in the packet, what the requests were in years past.
Well, my concern is that when we get a request that that we need to give an answer quickly, because when they have a request, it's obviously a concern. Now, I would assume that it could be fairly collective. If you've gotten cameras prior, you don't need to replace those cameras at this point. You might need to get a few more cameras, but you don't need. So at some point, that would catch itself up as far as that goes. There again, we're supposed to be saving money. We're putting stuff on the reconciliation list. I believe that we probably should put something else on the reconciliation list. Not that I think that it's necessarily going to be that we're going to be able to spend, that we're going to have that money to allocate, but I do think it'd be something that we should consider. Or Councilmember Mink, do you have an opinion on that as well?
Sure. Yeah, I wanted to clarify in the questions. It says that there were 11 applicants who did not receive funding. 4 of those were ineligible, and 7 were not recommended for funding, primarily because it was unclear from the application how the organization was at risk of hate crimes. And then the funding, the 1.65 million, is what would be required to provide the grant to all eligible applicants. So that would include the 7 who were not recommended because it was unclear how they would be at risk of hate crimes. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it was, in the grand scheme of things, it was a relatively nominal amount that we're talking about with those 7 in comparison to the full. How many total do we have? 100. Anyways, well over 100. We did include that because what we're working with those organizations is to extrapolate whether or not they did in fact have some legitimate concern about hate that they just didn't articulate in their application. So the reviewers couldn't find any nexus to a hate crime or any fear of a hate crime, and that's why it was turned down. But in the spirit of what we're doing here, we want to work with those organizations, engage them, and find out how we can best help them, so in the future we do consider that we may see those expenses again.
Okay. So do you happen to have a figure for what the funding would be to provide the grant? I mean, obviously we want to make sure that it's getting to all the people who legitimately need it and who it's going to be effective for. Do we, for the purpose for which the money is allocated, do we have an estimate for what would have been required to fund everybody who was eligible, not including the 7 who were not recommended after their screening?
Councilmember, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but we certainly have that in our records, so I can absolutely provide that to you.
Okay, that seems relevant, certainly.
Absolutely. And I would just say that's, again, going with the assumption that we continue with the same trend next year, that we would have the same figure empirically of what's requested this year is the same as requested next year.
Right. Obviously, this is a field that is extremely dynamic. It's going to
go
exactly. Sometimes, and it's going to hopefully go dramatically down at other times. I don't think we're in one of those times. But it certainly is dynamic, and so I think making sure that we're coming back to give this a good, thorough analysis each year makes a lot of sense. And I think that the council staff proposal of having some of the funds start to be on one-time funding, knowing that we're going to come back and talk about it and then possibly even have more on one-time funding for the next year or whatever. But I think at some point it makes sense for some of this funding to be one-time, because what we're hoping is that at some point it's going to go down, and knowing that this is a council that's going to want to make sure that we're funding what's needed and appropriate each year, but that it's dynamic. But for now, while we're waiting to get more details on the funding that would have been needed without those 11, because that is what we want you to be doing, of course, is what you're doing, is doing a proper screening and making sure that this is going to those who are eligible for the purpose described. But I appreciate you digging in with each of them also to make sure that it's not just a grant writing issue. maybe we should put some of this on the reconciliation list, or it seems to me that we should be able to trim some of this, but we don't know how much. So I don't know if colleagues might be interested in doing tranches, or what would make the most sense. But I think that probably some more analysis is warranted on this one.
You want to jump in? No.
I mean, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine not putting any of the suggested monies on the reconciliation list. I think all of that should be that we're recommending that. The question was there are those who said that it should be enhanced, and whether or not there should be something on the reconciliation list for that. At this point, I think if we can just hold on to what we have without putting that on the reconciliation list, I think that's probably as good as we could get at this point.
I just want to be clear I understand what you're saying. So with respect to that, you mean allowing for the $300,000 in the enhanced funding for the security grants as recommended in here,
Yep.
and not putting anything on the rec list, which I'm fine with.
Yeah.
Okay. And including the other
Yeah.
general fund recommendations that are on this bulleted list, and leave them be,
Yeah.
and recommend them 3-0. Is that correct?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Sorry, just one clarifying question. Councilmember Mink, you mentioned about the one-time versus ongoing funding. I just wanted to verify, so we will add that for one time for the time being?
So those were two items that I was bringing up for conversation. Thank you. So one is whether colleagues want to have so there's the 900K that we want to make sure that we continue. There's the 300K enhancement, of which some of that is potentially what would cover some of the applicants who were deemed not eligible for the funds, and so whether colleagues wanted to put any of that on the rec list. If they don't, that's fine also. But do we want to make any of that 300K, the enhancement, be one time, as suggested by council staff?
I don't. I would like to keep the 900 plus the 300, 1.2 on as it's in the budget itself.
Okay. Well, I'm comfortable with that also, and I don't have a doubt that there is going to be a need. But I will say that I think that making sure that we're coming back to understand the difference between the numbers between the applicants who are eligible and not eligible and how that's working. I'm going to guess it's all going to bring us up probably to over this number anyway, but to make sure that we're having that conversation as we go through these over time would be helpful.
And Councilmember Mink, that's actually a very good point, is that this year all applicants were capped at $15,000. So we can just do some simple math there to say that exactly what you surmised is that even taking them out, this wouldn't reach the full level of what was requested by those who were in fact eligible.
Okay.
If that brings you any comfort.
Yeah. No, I think that's the important question that needs to be asked and answered. And we all look forward to a time when we're not going to need these funds, and we'll continue to reassess. So thank you. I'm comfortable with keeping this all in the budget as recommended, the full 120.
Quick question for Director Hodgson, following up on Councilmember Mink's points. And just, I'm thinking of this through the lens of having done the hate crimes grants for the schools and childcare facilities that the state has. And, in that sense, the funding may have changed year to year. There was, the year the law passed, there was actually nothing in the budget for it. So that made it kind of hard. But every year, the agency in charge of administering that could determine, once it knew its funding amount, how it was going to use that and the criteria by which it would be judged. So have the criteria by which the applicant's been judged varied year to year based on needing to make adjustments programmatically in order to adapt to the needs in the community?
I would say it's informed by previous years. We do try to be consistent year to year, and I'll just elaborate a little bit there. It speaks to what is eligible and what's not eligible. So, for instance, this year we added the Fusus Core system because we saw that as a growing need in the community. To build on Chair Katz's comment, yes, they had all built, or many of them had built security and surveillance systems into their security plan. What we hadn't done is tapped into them so that we could watch them in real time and also reconstruct them for investigative purposes. So this year we changed the criteria of what was allowable. We've also changed it to emphasize those who haven't received funding in the past. So if they're a first-time applicant or they've demonstrated that they haven't made measurable progress in their security posture, then they do score higher by the reviewing committee.
Okay. Yeah, no, thank you. That's really helpful. And I think at some point, not during budget time, it would be great to have a year-over-year analysis of criteria.
We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, and let's have a more robust discussion about it, because then that helps inform, especially as we continue rolling through very uncertain times, what may be needed in the future. So thank you.
Absolutely. We'd welcome that opportunity.
Yeah, no, I think we need to put on a calendar somewhere that we need to get an update, a revisit, or whatever the right term would be. And for the places that are paying for security personnel, how does that work for them? Are they allowed to use these funds?
Yes. So when we talk about some of the costs that are kind of one-time costs, and that's, I don't want to call capital, but it's equipment, such as the video equipment. Well, the majority of it is that those who are requesting the grants ask for, and then they do receive, is for security during their services. So that is an allowable cost. That's an encouraged cost. In all literature that you'll see in Homeland Security, having a uniform presence there with a marked police car out front is one of the most effective deterrents that we can possibly put out there. So not only do we provide them with the funding, but we do connect them with our part-time program here in Montgomery County Police, which allows Montgomery County police officers, but also all of our allied agencies who are authorized to operate here in Montgomery County, the opportunity to provide marked vehicles and uniformed, armed police officers there during their services.
Well, and there again, I think we need to get an update on that. How many are, and to the point that's been made several times today, it'd be wonderful if we didn't have to have this discussion.
Of course.
But the reality is, wonderful is a long way from now, I can tell you. So, anyhow, I'm fine leaving it the way it is, and I think that's a 3-0, I believe. I'm looking at you, I look in various places, and I see you everywhere. Kristen, I see you everywhere. But it's a 3-0 to leave it like it is and put nothing on the reconciliation list. But with the thing that's on the reconciliation list that has nothing to do with budgets, that we're going to come back and visit this again.
Yeah.
Okay? Anything else? Are we good? Is it a 3-0?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you all for everything you do.
Thank you all very much for all the continued support.